Hello, students. I hope you enjoyed the first part of the symposium last week. This week, we have three topics: the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic, the role of faith during this challenging times, and the importance of mental health and well-being during these times of social distancing. First is Harry Holzer, who holds a PhD in economics and teaches public policy at Georgetown. He is also the father of Leah Holzer, class of 2019.
Hi, everybody. I would like to talk to you today about the business cycle in the American economy and how it's been affected by the coronavirus. My name is Harry Holzer. My daughter, Leah Holzer, was a member of the class of 2019. I'm an economist by training. I teach economics and other things at Georgetown University. But I'd like to talk first about the whole phenomenon of the business cycle, or boom and bust cycles in economies, and then relate it to COVID-19. Capitalist and industrial economies regularly go through business cycles or a boom and bust cycle. We can be in a period of great prosperity, everything is going along perfectly fine, and then something happens that causes a downturn in the economy. Workers get laid off, unemployment rises, incomes fall. When that happens, when a downturn happens, we call that either a recession, if it's not too serious, or even a depression. Of course, the most famous episode of this was the Great Depression in the 1930s. Usually, when it happens, it doesn't happen quite as severely as that. The last time it happened was about a decade ago. We had something called the Great Recession. It started in 2008, and it went on for a few years. But when this happens, when you get a big downturn like this, the basic economic problem is that we get too little demand in the economy for the goods and services that the economy produces. Demand is basically spending. When consumers spend and buy products, when businesses spend to invest in their business, when the government spends. And what happens during a downturn, during a recession or depression, is all of a sudden people get frightened. They stop spending. Then businesses can't sell their products, so they start laying off workers. And then those workers get laid off, have even less income. They spend even less money. So we have this downward spiral that occurs with, too little spending going on and unemployment rising. And that can keep going and going if the government doesn't step in to do something to fight it. Well, what does the government do in these circumstances? The government does really two things that are pretty closely related to each other, and they often overlap. The government, number one, provides direct relief to households, to unemployed workers, even to businesses sometimes. And then the government tries to stimulate the economy, tries to stimulate new demand and new spending to get ourselves out of that recession or depression. So the relief can come in many forms. The government expands unemployment insurance, the money that people get when they've lost their jobs for no reason of their own. The government expands food stamps for people that need help paying their bills. There's other ways the government can help provide relief. And these things not only provide relief to the suffering workers and households, but they can be the beginnings of some stimulus of spending in the economy. Now, what does this have to do with COVID-19? This is the first time in our history where the government has deliberately decided to shut down the economy, essentially to crash the economy. Why did it do that? Because that's the only way you get social distancing going on in order to stop the spread of the virus. So we made a choice. We made a deliberate choice about a month ago, a little over a month ago, to shut down all of these businesses, to stay at home, to keep the virus from spreading. And when we did that, it created the fastest drop in the economy and the fastest increase in unemployment that we've ever seen in American history, and perhaps in the history of any industrial economy. Just to show you how fast that was, The unemployment rate was 3.5% before all of this started. Within a few months, economists think the unemployment rate will go up to 20 or 30%, as bad as it was during the Great Depression. And again, it's something we deliberately chose to do to stop the spread of the virus. Now, initially, people thought, well, just as we very quickly shut down the economy to slow the spread of the virus, we can just as quickly pump the economy up when we're ready to do that. That was the initial hope. In other words, that we'd have like a V-shaped business cycle, a very rapid decline when we shut down the economy. But then the idea was hopefully when the virus is passed, we'll have a very rapid increase, right? All of a sudden businesses will open up, everybody will go back to work, the problem will be over, and we will have held down the virus without creating a long-term economic problem. Nobody really believes that anymore. Nobody believes that we're just going to quickly bounce back from this downturn. The bouncing back is going to be much more gradual than people originally thought. It will take months or even years. Why is that? Well, for two reasons. Number one, the reopening of the economy will have to be done very gradually. People start talking. It's not going to be like switching on a light switch. Very slowly, we'll start reopening the sectors of the economy. If the virus starts spreading again, we might have to shut it back down. It might be we're shutting it, opening it, and shutting it back and forth for quite a period of time. But the second reason is, by the time we're all done with this, there will have been so much pain. So many households will have depleted their savings and piled up debt. So many businesses will have piled up debt or even gone out of business that we won't be ready to start spending really rapidly and climb out of this thing because we will have all sort of gone into a big economic hole with all kinds of debt that we didn't have before. So people won't be ready to spend quickly. Businesses won't be ready to spend quickly. And that will make the recovery even slower. So the government has to step in and do what it usually does when there's a downturn. It has to provide relief to the suffering households and suffering businesses, and then it has to stimulate the economy. And the government has been doing a lot of that. Most of the initial efforts to date have focused on relief. We've greatly increased food stamps and eligibility for food stamps. We've pumped a lot of money into unemployment insurance. For businesses to try to keep them from collapsing, we've started huge new categories of loans. One category for small businesses, one category for large businesses that are really heavily affected like this, like airlines and hotels and those kinds of industries. So we've already done a lot of that. And often the line between relief efforts and stimulus, it's a very fine line. Often the things that we do to do those two things overlap. So we're hoping that a lot of these efforts eventually stimulate spending as well. The other thing the government has done is it's actually sent checks to almost every household in the economy, to people and to adults. Every family that has an income below $100,000, the adults in those families have gotten $1,200 checks from the federal government. Every child, or for every child, there's been an additional $500 check. And again, the point of this is to directly provide relief to all the people who need it, and eventually to create a small pot of savings that people can start spending to stimulate the economy. And when and of course you can't stimulate too much when you're under a shutdown order, but when the shutdown orders start to be lifted, perhaps in May, perhaps in June, the government will then likely do more to stimulate spending, to stimulate demand in the economy. There will be more fiscal policy, more direct spending by the government on things like infrastructure and other needs. There might be tax cuts, and the Federal Reserve. Now, the Federal Reserve has already done. The Federal Reserve has already brought interest rates down to zero, and it has already opened up all these loan programs, and it will have to continue to do that in order to stimulate a recovery from this very rapid downturn. And that will go on for months and probably even years. For how long? We don't really know. And how much will be needed? We don't really know. We've never been in this kind of a circumstance. So we'll see. The Fed will try some things, the government will try some things, and if that's not enough, it will have to do more. And it may have to keep doing that, like I said, into 2021, maybe even beyond 2021. Thank you. Hope you found this useful and maybe a little bit interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Holzer. Next is Rev John Harmon, rector and pastor at Trinity Church in Washington, D.C., a parent of two St. Andrews alumni, Jarena, class of 2015, and Justin, class of 2017, and a member of the school's Board of Trustees. Reverend Harmon will speak about the importance of community.
Hello, everyone. I'm John Harmon. I serve as rector and pastor of Trinity Church in Washington, D.C., and a trustee of St. Andrew's Episcopal School. I am equally honored to be a parent of two graduates of St. Andrew's, Jarena, class of 2015, and Justin, class of 2017. By now, we all have acknowledged that we are living in difficult times that are challenging almost everything we know and trust. Not only our personal way of life, but also the ways we express our love and live in community. COVID-19, the coronavirus, is no respecter of person or place. It knows no boundaries. It has touched and changed the world as we know it. But together, we can live through these difficult times. Notwithstanding, keeping faith and finding hope in the midst of a crisis is not always easy, especially when the solution is not within sight or our reach. But faith is very much about having hope in the midst of what we cannot see, while working and pressing on to what we believe and wish to see happen. This takes time and practice, and it is what faith is all about. Prayer or spirituality is also just this, practice, and paying attention to the ways we respond to each other and the problem that is before us all. Prayer, in one sense, is not hoping that someone else will do something about a predicament, but it is about finding within ourselves the courage and strength to do something about the problem. This may seem like a lonely task, but we are not created to live or be alone. We need each other, even when we cannot be within reach of one another as we keep our physical distance. This is why community is so important. Belonging to a community helps all of us to embrace what we need to achieve and believe, and how we can help support the common good. I think this is in part what Jesus meant when he said, "You do not believe because you do not belong." This is not a statement about exclusion, but rather an invitation to belong to community, like our own families, our faith communities, and a place like St. Andrew's School. They all try to show us how to be a community of love and compassion, a place of blessing and healing, while seeking to understand what it will take for all of us to live and have a future beyond this moment and the current crises. This is why I also like what Amson said in the 12th century, that faith is belief seeking understanding, or we believe so that we may understand. If anything, this crisis may help us to know that we belong to each other. In some ways, we are beginning to have a deeper appreciation for what it means to be in community. We are learning to know that we are created for each other. We can beat COVID-19 together. None of us is stronger than all of us together. We must use all our resources and wisdom, our intellect and best practices to help heal and lead us through this crisis and into yet another day and our best future. Be safe, stay healthy, and be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Harmon. And finally, we have Robin Forman, who joins us at St. Andrews in September as our school counselor. She will speak on ways to help our mental well-being during the pandemic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Forman, and I'm a licensed clinical professional counselor. I'm really excited to be joining the St. Andrews community next fall as your school counselor. During this time, COVID-19 can really affect your psychological and mental well-being. I wanted to offer a few tips on how to best handle that during this time. I hope they're helpful, and I'll see you soon.
Since you've already been in this situation for a couple of months, you've likely already experienced many frustrating emotions and wondered, how am I supposed to be dealing with this? I'm going insane. Or you may be taking all of this in stride while a friend of yours appears to be losing their mind. We all respond to things in different ways, so it's best to not compare yourself with others. There's no right or wrong way of dealing with this. You've probably seen that people within your own family are dealing with this in their own ways. This is an unprecedented time in history, something that we never expected to happen. It can feel unreal at times. So however you're responding, allow yourself to feel that way. You've probably even noticed that your feelings can change from day to day. Because of all of this, our everyday routines have been completely disrupted. You may find yourself staying up later, eating more or less, having more or less energy. It can be easy to fall into an unhealthy rut. Many of us miss the routines that created a much more structured day. We would wake up, eat breakfast, go to school, and we could have a reasonable expectation of what we would be doing each day. That structure creates a sense of safety for us. It's important to try and create some sort of routine for yourself during this time. Have you noticed that you may be eating more junk food or not getting enough sleep? Teenagers need at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep each night, and your mood can be negatively affected if you don't. Being at home more also allows us more time to sit on the couch and not get enough exercise. Try to spend time each day being active and, if possible, spend some time every day outdoors. More time at home likely means more time on devices. As great as technology can be, allowing us to stay connected with friends and families during all of this, it's good to know when to disconnect. If you're spending hours of your day on devices, you may notice changes in your mood. Try to listen to your body. Get up, walk around, do something different. Do you like to listen to music, dance, or do art? Have you tried baking or cooking? If there was ever a time to try something new, this may be it. Do you have an animal at home? Studies have shown that pets can be therapeutic. Sometimes just petting them can bring us calm. If you have a more active pet, playing with them can be a great source of exercise. And if you have a goofy pet like mine, a source of laughter as well. Here you can see my dog, Pippi, on a yoga mat. Probably one of the most important things to learn, not just during this time, but in life in general, is how to communicate in healthy ways. You'll hear a lot about this from me next fall. When you're frustrated or dealing with difficult emotions, you may be tempted to take it out on those around you. Even if you are upset or annoyed with a family member or a friend, you probably know that if you start telling them everything that they're doing wrong, that their response will probably not be particularly well received. When someone feels cornered or blamed, they will become defensive. By using something called I statements, you let someone know how you're feeling using I instead of you. For example, if you tell someone, "You're driving me crazy because you always drink all the juice," the person that hears that may not respond in a way that's helpful for everyone involved. If instead you say, "It makes me feel really frustrated when you drink all the juice, so maybe you can save a bit for me next time," that might be received a bit easier. Let's try another one. Let's say your mom always asks you to complete your chores right when you wake up, and that's usually when you feel the most grumpy. During the day when you're not grumpy, you can address this with your mom by saying, "Mom, it makes me feel really frustrated when you ask me to do my chores first thing in the morning when I'm hardly awake. Do you think you could leave me a note instead or ask me after I've eaten breakfast?" This may be received much better than, "Mom, you drive me insane when you talk to me first thing in the morning." I imagine no one's day will seem very bright after that. Uncomfortable emotions can be described as any feelings other than positive ones. For some reason, we have a much harder time expressing feelings of sadness or fear. During this time of quarantine, when we're all feeling confused and frustrated and sad, we may feel more like isolating or keeping our feelings to ourselves. This is actually a good time to practice expressing our feelings to others. Let your parents know if you're feeling scared or unsure of the future. Reach out to an adult that you might trust. And if you're not sure who to turn to, you can reach out via the crisis text line listed on this presentation. This is particularly important if you're starting to have thoughts of hurting yourself or someone else. Please reach out. And if you're ever unsure who to contact in an emergency, you can dial 911. In a time when everything seems uncertain, it probably feels like we don't have much control over anything, but we can take control over how we react to others. By using healthy communication like I statements, we are able to keep things at home somewhat more peaceful. And by reaching out when we feel difficult emotions, instead of isolating or lashing out, we are taking control of ourselves, which can feel really positive. I'm sure you've all heard of gratitude. Studies have shown that expressing gratitude when we're feeling low can increase feelings of happiness. Try to take some time each day to find at least one thing for which you are grateful. It can be something really small. During a time of so much sickness, perhaps we can just be grateful for our health. While some are spending their quarantine alone, even though our family can be frustrating at times, we can be grateful for people around us who love us. Keep in mind that this is not forever, even though sometimes it feels like it is. If you remember nothing at all from this presentation except this last slide, that's okay. Please don't forget to take deep breaths every day. Fill your lungs with air, then slowly exhale. Do this multiple times a day. And find ways to laugh. Find the humor in everyday things. Call a friend that makes you feel good. Watch a comedy. Read a funny book. Laughter is therapeutic. I hope some of these tips will be helpful to you and your family. I wish you all the best.
Thank you to all of our participants. Students, I hope you found these videos helpful and informative. Now remember, stay healthy, be well, and make it a great day.